Hey guys, Morgan's Maintenance. Today's tool talk isn't going to be about tools, but I thought I'd share with you my experience of my first year being a handyman, contractor, general contractor, whatever it is you want to call it, or whatever it might be called in your area, of being a self-employed business owner. You know, I'm Morgan's Maintenance now, and I'm the only person. I don't have employees, anything like that, but I started my first job August 15th, 2022. We're just a little bit past that, so again, I thought might be a good time for me to share my experience with you, because several of you have, mentioned in comments asking how my business is going, or you've sent me emails, and I really appreciate you guys checking up on me. And just to get into it, I guess, since we're about at 10,000 subscribers now, maybe I need to share with you where I come from and then also what I do. That way maybe y'all have a better understanding of who I am, and then that way this stuff might make more sense to you as well. So as far as the type of work I do, and just going back in history, I've been working my whole life. I remember my first job, I think 14 years old. There was a golf course by my house that I could walk to, and then I was able to be their cart boy. I basically cleaned the golf carts, kept them on charge on battery, or put gas in them depending upon which one they were. Went around at the end of the day, got all the flags, all those things. All through high school, I worked in a little grocery store that I made pizzas, I stocked shelves. I also counted night crawlers and crickets and minnows and things for a bait shop because it was right by a lake. I've done all sorts of things in my youth that really didn't lead me to where I'm at today, but other than maybe the work ethic. And then you get into, after high school, I went to college for a little while. I was just tired of school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually thought I wanted to be a teacher so that I could be a coach. And then I got into working in factories. And started out just working on lines and processing things, whatever it was. I worked at a place where I made wheels. I did a lot of welding and things like that. I worked in press departments, did a lot of working of machinery. From that, I went into, at some places I might have did a little bit of maintenance work. At some places I even did a little bit of tool and die work. And then other than that, I even moved up to where I was managing people, all sorts of things like that. But I was working 70, 80 hours a week, just all the time. Didn't have time to do anything else. And I finally just decided, you know what? I'm going to go find me a job that I'm going to work less hours, Monday through Friday. I've done enough of the working, 70, 80 hours a week. I did that all through my 20s and 30s and just didn't want to do it anymore. So I ended up working at the campus that I've talked about a lot. And again, I don't want to give out names of places because some of the footage might be whatever. But I worked there for 15, almost 20, in between 15, 20 years. I think it ended up being 17, as either a maintenance person or the head of maintenance. And because of that, that gave me some advantages that I'll get into in a little bit. And then I also did a few years with a commercial construction company doing project management, doing bids, estimates, going out, overseeing the jobs, making sure everything's on schedule, all those things like that. So I've got that in my background too. So that gets me into, what do I do now? Well, as my own business, I am basically doing anything for the most part. I've done everything this year, from bathroom remodels, completely from gutting them to taking them back. I've done office remodels. I've also built out complete suites. Maybe if you watch my drywall screw gun video, in the background of that, there was 2 suites that basically were from nothing, just the concrete slab. Matter of fact, one of them didn't even have the concrete in it yet. Building those completely out from the tenant, from basically the whole interior finish work. And then I've done everything from service calls of plumbing, electrical, HVAC, whether it's faucet changes, clogged sinks, capacitors that are bad, all sorts of things like that. Problems with 3-way switches, switch change outs. So I do a little bit of everything. And that's also an advantage for me as I get into these other advantages that we're going to talk about as I talk about my startup. So starting up, again, mine might be very completely different to yours. My advantages were I could do a lot of things, so it's not very hard for me to find work. Also, on top of that is, I also have a big network of people, being that I was a facilities manager at a place for 15 plus years, and then I did a lot of the work myself out there, but then there was also a lot of work where I just didn't have time to do it, so we would sub out some of that work, whether it was electricians, plumbers, HVAC guys, whatever it was. And because of that, now those guys know that I'm out on my own. They go out to a job. It may be an electrician. He's going out to put in some receptacles on a kitchen counter, and those people say, well, we really can't find anybody to do our backsplash for us. Do you know anybody? They'll say, you know what, Joey, with Morgan's Maintenance. He just went out on his own, does great work. I'll give you his number. That's how they call me. So that has happened over and over again. So network of people, I've had a huge advantage. I haven't even handed out one business card other than maybe just to a few people that ask me for them, but I never purposely go around giving out business cards, and I've stayed fairly busy because of just word of mouth. And then also customers. Prior to me starting my business, I did side work for people, not necessarily because I really even wanted to. It's just people couldn't find anybody in my area. So even on top of working my full-time job, I would help people out on the weekends or weeknights and come and do some work for them. And again, those customers have hired me as I've been my own business, but they've also gave my name out to people that have hired me because of that as well. So again, I might have some advantages that you didn't have as I go through what I say about me starting my business. Don't think that it's a test case for everybody. You might not have some of these things moving in, and it might drastically change how your first year goes. Another advantage would be I didn't have to go into debt to start my business. All the tools that I would possibly need, you know me, I've already got them. I've already got way too many. And then on top of that, I've already got my truck. I've already had all those things. And that was part of the reason why, as I worked for other people, even if they would provide me tools, one is I like to have my own tools because I like to take care of them, and I don't want to have to worry about what somebody else is doing with them, where they are, did they put them up, all the things like that. But also, this has been in the back of my mind of something I thought I might would want to do. A lot of times I catch my tools on deal, like my Stabila level I got for like $100, the digital level. You know, those things are like $400 new. Well, I could have went to my company and said, hey, I'd really like to have this level. Will you buy it for me for $100? And they would have had no problem doing it. But then if I left, that's their level, you know, and I want that level. So therefore I bought it so that it would be mine. So a big advantage is I didn't have to go into debt to do that. I didn't have to go into debt on any of those things, but I did have to go and get my contractor's license. I did have to pay my city license fee to work in the city that I work in. I did have to get general liability insurance, and I did have to get workers' comp insurance and pay for my LLC and get that set up and things like that. Some of those things might be different for you based on where you live. So in my area, to get a contractor's license, ultimately they just want your money. You don't have to go take a test, anything like that. Now, that's to be a specialty contractor. To be a general contractor, you might have to, I still don't think you have to take a test, but you might have to have some references and show that you have done some work. And the only difference between those two are the general contractor can basically go pull a permit and have more subs work under them than a specialty contractor can. I don't typically work on jobs where I hire subs, so it doesn't matter to me. So I just take the specialty contractor. But then you couple that with the city license fee. I have to pay another fee to work within the city that I work in. And then general liability and workers' comp. All those tallied together to get those things taken care of. It cost me about $3,000 for that and to set up my LLC and to get everything going. So even though I didn't have to go into debt for my tools and my truck, I still did have some money that I had to be out to start up the process. And that's stuff that's going to reoccur every year. So, you know, take $3,000 worth of your income and just say, well, when you go do a $3,000 job, it's pretty hard to say to yourself, oh, I just did that job for free because that paid for all my insurance and all those things like that. But that's just part of it. You have to have those things. So that's part of the startup. So that's me. That's what it took for me to start up. That's the advantage that I have. So now let's start out with what I would consider the best parts of this first year. And the main word I would say is going to be freedom. I have the freedom to choose jobs. So, you know, if you're an employee somewhere, you just have to do whatever the job is that's next on the list that someone tells you to do. And at the same hourly rate. There's always going to be good jobs, there's going to be bad jobs, but you're doing the good ones at a pay that you might like, but the bad ones you're like, well, I don't know if I'm making enough money for this. Well, I have the freedom to just tell somebody, one is, I'm not interested in doing that work at this moment, I just don't have the time or whatever it might be, or I can just up my price a little bit, and if they want me to still do it, I'm willing to do it, but at least I have incentive to do something that I might not would normally want to do, because I have the freedom to choose how much I want to make to do something, and then also whether or not I even want to do it at all. I also have the freedom to choose customers. You know, you might work for some place and you go to a house and this tenant is just a total, every time that you go there, just hard to deal with, everything that comes along with that, and you just say, man, I wish I never had to come back here. but next week, something's wrong with that tenant's house again. Your employer says, you know what, I'm gonna have to have you go fix whatever that is, and you gotta go. Well, I can go work with that customer that first time and then realize, you know what, he's not the customer for me. And then the next time he calls me and says, hey, I've got this problem, I just politely say, you know what, I just really can't get to you right now, but here's the phone number of someone else that maybe he can get to you, and I go along it that way. But I get to choose what customers that I want to work for. That's freedom within itself. And then I also get the freedom of choosing other people that I'm going to work around. Again, I said I don't hire subs very often, but if I'm going to, I get to pick the ones that I want to work on my job site. Someone else isn't dictating that for me. You know, if I want to have someone come in and do painting for me, I get to choose the painter, not someone picking them because they're the cheapest price or whatever. Then they come in and mess up all the work that I've done or whatever it might be. I get to choose someone that I know does good work, that I want working around me. That's freedom also. And then the last thing of freedom is I get to choose the pace and how much and how I want to do whatever work that it is I want to do. No one's telling me, you know, you should be getting this done in an hour and making me cut corners and doing things like that. No one's, you know, telling me, you know, you should be doing it this way. I have the freedom to do whatever it is I want to do because it's my business and my name is on it. Now, again, sometimes the customers are going to want you to do things a certain way, but I still get to choose how I go about achieving whatever it is that they want. So freedom is a big thing that is the best part to me by far, without a doubt. And then the other thing is, I have the sense of I'm building something that is mine. You know, my name, it's Morgan's Maintenance. My name is on it. So everything, every bit of effort that I put into it is something that I'm building for myself. And it's just something that you get a different sense of accomplishment with your work when your name is on it than what you get when you're doing it for someone else. I feel I'm always going to appreciate the work that I do. An employer more than likely never will, especially if you're in this kind of work, in my opinion. A lot of times they just don't get what all is involved in doing the kind of work that we do, and they never really appreciate what it is that you do if they've never done it before themselves in their entire life. So that's the best part so far this year. What about the hardest part? So far, it's definitely working by yourself. Means that you're 100% responsible for everything, and it's hard to be in 15 places at one time when you're working by yourself, because that means you're taking care of the scheduling, the estimating, the working, all those things that are involved in that. You're the one that has to do it. You have to accomplish it. And the hardest thing working for yourself is going to be, I'm here at this job doing work. This customer just called me, wants me to come look at work. Well, then if I go look at that, nobody's doing this work. So then that gets into your scheduling. You got to kind of work around to make sure you get this job done with this customer satisfaction as far as the time frame of it, but also be able to go out and get work lined up so that when you get done with that job, you now have another job to go to. Sometimes that can get hard. Sometimes that's really difficult whenever you're working by yourself and you don't have someone to help you out with that. That's been the hardest part so far. Also transitioning to working 100% out of my truck. You know, you've seen my truck load out. I've been doing my best to stick with the truck and to make sure that I have the things with me that I need at all times. But it becomes difficult because I've been used to working out of, I keep my own personal tools in my truck, but I also had all the tools of the company I work for if I needed to grab something quick. The materials were stored there. I also didn't have to drive from one side of town to next and then be far away from a store and all the things that go along with that. That's been pretty difficult to get a hold of, and it's something different that I've not ran into before. So that's been a hard part as well. And then also taxes. You know, whenever you work for an employer, they pay part of your taxes. Like you might end up paying 10% of your taxes. Well, now I'm paying probably 17 to 20% of my wages in taxes. Now, granted, you do get to write off more things as a business owner, so maybe that's why, but you also have to pay quarterly taxes. You have to know how much you got to pay in taxes, all the things that go along lines with that. Now, what's been an advantage to me with that, and again, this might not be an advantage to you. It might make a total big difference in what you do is, one of my sons, my oldest son, he's a CPA, just graduated out of college, so I've always been able to lean on him and ask him questions. He's been there to help me get the kind of stuff set up. coach me through some processes, because to be honest with you, that was the thing that was really making me not switch over to being self-employed for a long time. One is health insurance, which I get that through my wife's work. So again, that's another advantage that I didn't cover before. And then also, I've just never been on the financial side of things. You know, home finances and business finances are two totally different things. I've never done it before. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but having my son who's a CPA, that has helped out tremendously. So again, that's another advantage that I have. But that has been a hard part, is just paying all those taxes, making sure you pay them on time, keeping up with how much you should have to pay, all the things that go along with that. And not only that, just understanding how much you're paying in taxes. It's just hard to deal with sometimes. So that's the best and the hardest part. Now let's talk about, how do you go about getting work? I've just got a few random questions that maybe I thought people might ask. How do you go about getting work? Currently, it's 100% word of mouth. As I mentioned, I haven't handed out a business card except for if somebody's asked me for one, but I don't go around town in stores or something and say, hey, my name's Joey Morgan, I'm Morgan's Maintenance, I'm the owner, here's my business card, here's what I do, if you ever want to hire me for something. Haven't done that yet, but it's because, again, I had customers already. I had a big network of subcontractors of different trades who've been giving my name out. And then also the people who I have done work for have been giving my name out to other people. Just in 2022, from August to the end of the year, I worked for 15 different people over the course of that year. And then so far from January through August of this year, I've worked for 48 different people. So I'm starting to increase my customers just by word of mouth. And to me, I like doing it that way because one is there's a chain of connection between the people I've done work for that have paid me, that know how much I kind of charge, also kind of know what kind of work I do. Between them and the person they gave my name to, there's a pretty good chance that if they paid me, they're probably going to pay me also. And then also the expectations kind of are already there for what the price might be, and also the kind of work that I'm going to do and what I'm bringing to the table and things like that. So that's how I'm getting my work. Currently, I am booked out on big jobs for the rest of the year. Like if I didn't go and get another job for the rest of the year, I've got work to do all the way through December. So currently, I'm not even taking big jobs. I'm telling people, you know, I will talk to you about it. I'll come look at it. I'll give you an estimate even, as long as you understand I won't be able to do it probably until next year. And if they're okay with that, then we'll talk about it. But only thing I'm kind of adding in now are service call jobs or things that might take one day, one afternoon. And I always tell all those customers up front, I will fit you in as soon as I can. Basically, there's always times on my big jobs where drywall mud's drying. Maybe a day comes up that I thought I was going to be able to work, but I'm waiting on materials. I call up those customers and say, hey, I'm free tomorrow afternoon. I can come change out your faucets that day if that works for you. And then that's what I'm doing. So word of mouth, 100%. I've been able to stay busy. I've been getting calls like crazy from like the Angie's List and things like that wanting me to sign up. But I just don't see the need in it right now because I'm as busy as I want to be. And I'm also getting plenty of work to where I'm turning down probably more work than I'm actually doing, which is going to seem maybe crazy to you as I get into some stats that I talk about on how much I make in a little while. But again, I'm still building service customers. So I'm making sure if anybody calls me about service work, I'm taking those jobs and telling them I'm going to fit them in as soon as I can, because that's what I want to do long term. It's harder to make more money doing service work than doing big jobs. But the older I get, I want to be able to just pull up to somebody's house, get out my tool bag, change out something like a ceiling fan, a faucet, whatever it is. As I get older, that's what I want to do. But I've primarily just been doing big jobs for the most part right now. And by big jobs, I mean something that's going to take you multiple weeks to maybe even a month or so. The next big question that I know everybody's going to ask is, how much are you making? And I'm not going to get into the specific amounts, you know, that I make and how much I make a year and all those things, because it's really irrelevant. You know, where you live and where I live and, you know, all the things that go into that. There's so many different factors. Again, what I make might seem like a lot to some people, and then to some people they're going to say, well, that ain't nothing. I make way more than that doing the same exact kind of work. And again, you probably will in certain places and then you won't in certain places. But I've had months where I make $15,000 a month. I've had months where I make $4,000 a month. A lot of that just deals when my payments might come in. But typically, you know, I make somewhere in that range. And let's just say hypothetically. So I'm just going to use these examples as we go through this, because basically in my first year, I made pretty much the same, maybe a little bit more than what I made at my last employer, but there's a big difference when we get into it. So let's just say, hypothetically, I made $100,000 at my last employer. I didn't make that, but that's an easy number to go by. Well, if I take 40-hour work weeks and I times that by 52 weeks, that's 2,080 hours a year. And then if you divide that by 100,000, you're going to get into, I think it's $48 an hour. Again, that's not what I made at my last employer, but those are 100,000 is just an easy number to throw out there. So let's say that's what I made, $100,000, $48 an hour at my job where I work for my employers. Well, in my current job, in my self-employed business, I made about the same amount of money as I made from January to January, from August to August of this year, maybe a little bit more. But I only physically worked 1,300 hours in that time span. So the same time span where I would have worked 52 weeks, I really only worked 32 and a half weeks. So I basically had 19 and a half weeks worth of physical time that I would have got as vacation time off my job, basically to make the same amount of money. So if I took $100,000 and divide it by 1,300 hours, I make $77 an hour in my current job that I'm at right now. And again, those are just numbers. That's not the real numbers. But just to give you an idea, and again, that 1,300 hours isn't the full, that doesn't take in consideration me going and getting my licenses or me making phone calls with people. Those are just the times I keep up with, the time I spend physically on every single job. And I had 1,300 hours involved in that. So making the same amount of money with a lot less time makes my money per hour a lot more, which means I had more freedom. I had more free time. Now, I could give up some of that free time if I want to, and I have the potential, because if I work the same 2,080 hours and got paid the same as I got physically paid for the hours that I did work at $77 an hour, I have the potential to make $160,000 from year to year if I really wanted to. But again, I prefer my freedom. I don't want to be scheduled to all get out to where I'm just stressed all the time, all the things that go along with that. Again, these are just numbers, but basically I made the same amount of money working a whole lot less hours. And at my age, that's what I'm shooting for. You know, I was able to work in my 20s and 30s. I worked the 80-hour work weeks. I've done all those things. I got myself at a space financially where I'm debt-free. I don't have a mortgage. All the things that go along with that. So it's allowed me to have the freedom now to say, you know what, I'm going to physically work these many hours a year, make the same amount of money that I was working, and then now I've got some more free hours, whether I want to go and help someone else, whether I maybe want to do some work for someone for free because I just feel like it's something I want to do, whether I want to come home and cut my grass, whether I want to go to Home Depot and just look around the tool section for an hour a day. Those are all things that I can do, or I can just choose to, you know what, I'm feeling pretty good this week. I'm going to take on a whole lot of work this week and make some more money. But again, I've got the freedom and the choice to do that. That's some of the things that I think is the best part of me working for myself. But that's how much I'm kind of making. Again, I know that most people are going to want a number. I don't really want to share that because I don't want certain customers to feel like maybe I'm overcharging and then certain people to not, because they're okay with my prices. No one's ever complained about them. But, you know, if someone says, well, heck, if you're making that much money, you're charging me too much. Because, again, it's all irrelevant. Because how much I make doesn't mean anything if you live in a total different area than me compared to how much you might make. And then the last question someone might ask, you know, if you can go back in time, would you do it again? 100%. Now, are there things I miss about working for an employer? Yes, because there's usually going to be other coworkers with that. That's the biggest thing, is they become like a second family to you. You know, you spend a lot of time with your coworkers, so you miss that kind of relationship. But now your customers, other contractors, you know, you go and see this same customer 2 or 3 times a month. They get to be somebody that you grow a relationship with. You start talking to them. There's another guy that I work with quite often on big jobs, so we're around each other quite a bit. So, you know, it's always, you kind of replace one with the other, but you do begin to miss, you know, having that family, that second family relationship. Now, you get into the taxes, the financial record keeping, and all the things that go along with that, the estimating, all those things that you might not would have done before, all the paperwork aspects of it. You know, that's not fun. You know, I like to just go out and do work. But that's part of it, and there's a trade-off with that. You know, again, I might have to do all those things. I might have to spend time estimating, going and scheduling, go do stuff that I don't even end up getting paid for. But I also get that time to come home, cut my grass, go to Home Depot, decide, you know what, I'm going to take this Thursday off because I want to do this with my kids, or I want to do whatever. I have the freedom to do that, and that's worth everything in the world to me, especially at the place where I am in my life right now. So, but again, realize as I go through this, I'm not wanting this to come off as I'm sugarcoating and saying everybody should go out and start their own business, because I have a lot of advantages moving into this. That allowed me to be able to have a really good first year, in my opinion. And again, maybe it's going to grow and continue to go on. But you just have to decide for yourself. If it's something that you want to do, I would always encourage someone to do it. But I also would suggest, you know, make sure you get all your ducks in a row just so that you'll start out good. But you also might want to start out doing some side work on the side. Even though that stinks, you know, nobody wants to go and work a 40, 50-hour work week and then also in the evenings go remodel somebody's bathroom. But it will at least give you an idea if it's something that you might want to do before you just totally jump ship and lose a job that you might have had that was maybe a pretty good job to start with. So definitely want to do that. And then again, where you live, the circumstances in which you start, all those things play a role. Nobody's situation is going to play out exactly the same as yours is. Someone might have great success, and that doesn't mean you're going to. And then someone also might completely fail, but that doesn't mean you're going to either. It's kind of just a chance that you got to take if it's something that you want to do. I'd always, again, recommend anybody that wants to. I will, you know, pull for them and say that you should do it if that's something that you're intrigued to do. You should just set out to do those things. But again, there are advantages and disadvantages of both being employed and self-employed. I've been both. I've mainly been employed my whole entire life, but now I've been self-employed. And at my time in my life where I'm at right now, the advantages of the self-employed are exactly what I'm looking for. It might not have been so in my younger days. I'd just soon just kept on working and having that constant money flow coming in and things like that. But where I'm at right now, it's all about the freedom to me, freedom of choice, freedom of my time, freedom of just deciding what it is I want to do and how I want to do it. That's what I love most about it. But let me know in the comments below if you've been both, self-employed, also employed, which one you'd rather do. Give suggestions down in the comments below. Give your experience, all the things like that. Help people out who are kind of on the fence and want to do one or the other. Maybe you've been self-employed your whole entire life and you're thinking, you know what, I'm tired of doing the taxes and the financial bookkeeping and finding jobs and all those things. I think I'd rather just go work for somebody, and that might be a better fit for you. You just don't know until you try it. But maybe give your experiences down below in either case, what you think, which way you think has been best for you, especially if you work both. Help everybody out to help make them make the best decision. That's the idea behind all my videos. Help you decide on a tool, help you make the best decision possible with your business. Whatever it is, if I can help you out in some way, that's what my videos are for. But I hope this was useful. You guys stay safe. Have a blessed day. See you on the next video.